Welcome back to Photoshop Basic Training Essentials, and in this video we're going to make a contact sheet, and we've been optimizing our images for web in previous tutorials, but you don't necessarily need to optimize your images for the web for this project. It can be taking any imagery. Okay, so when preparing multiple choices or examples for work for a client that you're going to have a project to be worked on, it's a standard practice to create a contact sheet. A contact sheet is an old photography darkroom term. Film negatives used to be sandwiched between glass and exposed with an enlarger onto light-sensitive paper to show what the positive images were. That was a contact sheet. Art directors and their clients would be able to go through them and choose the exact images that they would use for a publication. So here's how to create one in Photoshop. So make sure that your images or a copy of your images are actually in the same folder. Okay? Photoshop has a number of functions where it can automate your work. So in Photoshop, under the File drop-down menu, there is one to choose called Automate, and there's a number of things packed in there. I like to use Batch. PDF presentation, you can make multiple page PDFs with the images that you have, so that's kind of an advantage as well. And this one right here called Contact Sheet 2. Now, why is it called Contact Sheet 2 as opposed to just Contact Sheet? I think they revamped this whole thing. So for a while, they took the Contact Sheet out of Photoshop, and then here it is back again because it was such a good option. There is a way of making a contact sheet in Adobe Bridge, but that's another story. You make a PDF out of it. This is a great way to quickly put together something in Photoshop. Okay, so let's go ahead and select Contact Sheet. Okay, and in this pop-up menu, you want to choose the options needed for the contact sheet. So there's 3 different areas here, plus we have an area where we can save it. We can also set some presets if we have a bunch of different things to do. All right, so first of all, in the source images, we want to use a folder because I did put my images all into a folder. Okay. Then we want to go ahead and choose it, or in other words, browse for that amongst our things on our in our computer. Yeah, don't just throw everything all over the desktop. That's a nasty habit, and you got to break that. Especially when you're working for a company, we need to be organized. And if you're a freelancer, so much the better, so you can always find everything, and everything is neat and tidy in its place. You don't lose the assets to what you're trying to do. All right, so I've got mine in a downsample optimized for web folder. Okay, so then go ahead and open that folder or choose that folder. Okay, so it does have shows me what folder I'm using. Now, if there are subfolders in it as well, I might want to also include images from the subfolders. In this case, no, I don't. I have a subfolder, but I don't want to include because those are duplicates of what I have. Okay, the next area here, let's see. Are we in the right place? Yeah. Okay. So in the document area, so I want to choose how big I want my document. 8 by 10 is okay because I can always fit it on an 8.5 by 11 where the edges do not print, because otherwise these images are going right along the edge of that. Okay, you may have this set at 300 pixels per inch or PPI for a resolution, but in reality, if this is going to be used to be printed out from a desktop printer, 150 pixels at actual size is always good enough, and 300 pixels per inch is just like overkill. So, do I want to flatten any layers? Well, some of these things might have had layers. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. keep it in RGB mode. I don't want to convert it to CMYK or anything of the sort, because I might want to have this not only printed from a desktop printer, but I might want to throw it on the iPad so that I can show my client. Color profile may be starting off with this sRGB, but Adobe RGB 1998 is actually kind of recommended because there's a little bit of a bigger color gamut. In another video, we'll talk about color range and color profile information, things like that. But we can keep it at that if you like. 8-bit depth is just fine. Let's just keep it simple. Next area is thumbnails, and we want to place how many across and how many down. So how many across is always your rows. How many rows? How many across? Then how many in the row. So how many columns is how many down. Okay, so going across would be 5 different columns, and how many rows down on the page would be 6 of them. Okay, so I might want to make my pictures bigger. This looks like it's going to be really kind of small. So the more that you have columns and rows, the smaller your images are actually going to be. So I'm going to go less, 4 by 5 rows. And then your vertical and horizontal spacing, we do want to separate these from each other and not be on top of each other. Plus, it takes it away just a little bit from the sides of the contact sheet. Okay. Last but not least, file name as the caption. Yes, you do want to have your file name as the caption. It's the default, but what font do I want? Oh, for goodness sake. Let's see. Myriad Pro is my favorite because it's just a sans serif and it's plain. And no, I don't need condensed. We just do some regular old font. 12-point type is very readable, and so there you have it, folks. Now, it's going to take from that folder, and it's going to build your contact sheet before your very eyes. So go ahead and click OK, and it opens up a brand new page. And we do need to have a little bit of patience here. So allow time for Photoshop to do its work in creating the contact sheet. So if there are more images than the first page will hold, Photoshop will make a subsequent images. So different contact sheets. You'll have page 1, page 2, page 3. You can save the contact sheet after it's finished as a Photoshop file, JPEG, a TIFF, any other file types. What I recommend saving it as is as a Photoshop PDF, which means that any client can view it in a PDF reader like Acrobat Reader, and in the iPad, something like Adobe Reader, which is very much the same thing. And you can put that on the iPad to show anyone that you like. Okay, so having a little bit of a larger image across, then these are just little thumbnail size examples of them, and you can see here it put actually the name of our image right underneath in the type style that I wanted and all that kind of stuff. So you might want to be very careful about how you name things so that it can be chosen. Plus, it will make sense to yourself and your client, and you'll be able to see these things pretty easily. Now, if you wanted 3 across and have these pictures bigger, well, then you have to choose less number of columns and rows. Okay? So, with that being said, let's go ahead and save this. Because it's not saved, even though it even named it Contact Sheet 1, and I'm okay with that. I might want to name it some contact sheet, for project such and such and so and so, and the format automatically is Photoshop. However, I want to make this into a Photoshop PDF, so this is what you're looking for, Photoshop PDF, not just PDF, but look for Photoshop PDF. Click Save. Okay, so settings, you're choosing to save Adobe PDF dialog can override your current settings in the save dialog, but yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with this. And so what I really recommend is to save the PDF as high as it will go, Acrobat 9, 10, 11, whatever, the current version or what have you. Okay. Do we want to preserve Photoshop editing capabilities? Well, sure, why not? Because then I might have to go back into this thing and edit something. My compression size, do I really need it to be that, pixels per inch? Again, anything that we're going with, screen viewable, it's fine. On the iPad, it's fine. Printing on a desktop printer, it's fine for 150 pixels per inch. If you're going to print this commercially, which a contact sheet is not to be printed in a commercial setting anyway, 150 is going to be just fine. Maximum image quality, that sounds great. Okay, our output, I'm not going to convert because we're in RGB, and RGB works actually quite well from a desktop printer because their conversion to CMYK happens inside of it. And we don't have a requirement for a password unless you are writing the Harry Potter books or something like that. So then this is a summary of all that we have. But so the main thing is getting this setting, the Acrobat, higher so it's compatible that way, and the compression can be a little bit smaller, and no conversion for our output. Save the PDF. Okay. And again, it's different than an earlier version, blah, blah, blah. I'm okay with that. So, all right, so this is my PDF. And then I can email this to myself and throw it on the iPad. All right, have fun, guys, and do some experimentation. It's well worth knowing how to do this.